could forget, of course, the splendid day of Meghan and Harry's wedding, particularly all those superstars that were in attendance. That's right. You know, people that could have been very useful to Meghan and Harry moving forward. We saw that with Oprah Winfrey, didn't we? And you have to remember, of course, for people like myself, covering the royal wedding on that day, it was interesting because normally you get given a guest list. You know, you kind of know who's going to be coming and who's not. You get the picture. We had no idea. When the superstar actor George Clooney stepped out with his beautiful wife Amal, there were genuine gasps. I mean, he looked great, she looked beautiful, and we're kind of thinking, well, how did he know them? Turns out, as we later found out from George himself, that in fact they'd never met. They'd just received an invitation. And George, being really cheeky, basically said, well, he came along because he'd never been to a royal wedding. It was an historic occasion and he was very happy for them. That was a bit of an afterthought, obviously. So step forward a few years, and now, as you can imagine, Meghan and Harry are going through some rather difficult times. She's recently lost out on the mega deal with Netflix for her Pearl animation, and of course Prince Harry's struggling ahead with his own Invictus Games documentary. So somebody like the two-time Academy Award-winning George Clooney being associated or reconnecting would have been absolutely brilliant for them when you think about it. So where has George disappeared to? Well, according to a very good source, it appears that George could be now on the naughty step. And this is all to do with the fact that he's moved in a different direction in Hollywood. And guess who thought she should have been moving with him? Hi, good morning, Neil Sean here in the very heart of London. Hope you're keeping well. Nice to have your company today. Thank you so much for joining me on the channel. It's lovely to have all those brand new subscribers. Look at London today, doesn't it look marvellous? I know. I still get people saying, is this a green screen? No, it's not. It's overshadow and dark. You see, is that a green screen? No. You see what I'm saying? It's all real. We go around the wonderful parts of London so that you get to see London from my eyes, you know, what I'm up to and where I get to. I wish he'd shut up now, there's enough, don't you? Yes, hogging the limelight. Back as ever to your royal story of the day. This story is fascinating in itself because George Clooney has now become a director. He's got a brand new movie out and it stars Ryan Gosling. Now, let me just take you back a little bit further to the late 1950s. And do you remember, of course, when the beautiful Grace Kelly left Hollywood after making high society with Bing Crosby and Frank Sinatra to become a princess? You do. Well, of course, years later, she did miss the world of acting, and many people tried to persuade her to come back, including co-star Frank Sinatra in a number of films, and of course the celebrated director Alfred Hitchcock. Sadly, she wasn't allowed to. Her husband, Prince Rainier, didn't think it was the right thing, and she wasn't really sure about the parts and stuff like that. So just imagine this particular scene with Harry and Meghan, because according to a very good source, and as ever we have to say allegedly, Meghan had hoped that she may have been approached by George in his directorial debut for his latest movie, Suburbicon. Now, what's interesting here is, obviously I do think George missed a trick, because simply if you think about it, just the PR that would have been attached to this would have been great for him. But according to a very good source, it never entered his head. Even though he went to the royal wedding and he didn't know Meghan, he didn't really think, of course, or see that this might be needed to be a return favour. You get the picture. But according to that very good source out in Montecito, Meghan isn't keen to make a return to acting, but she felt that this kind of positive PR, an endorsement from a superstar like George, would of course change the direction of her public persona, and more importantly, her PR. Sadly for her though, it looks like George himself brought down the curtain, closed the lights on her budding movie career. Now, as I say, we're not quite sure if Meghan does wish to return to acting. I mean, some might say she's been acting the whole period that she married Prince Harry, allegedly. But of course for her, I'm sure on a serious note, she may just miss the glare of the spotlight. And who better to shine it on her than George Clooney? Seemingly for George though, that's not going to be happening anytime soon. Neil Sean in the very heart of London.